Hello friends, this is the lesson number 14 in the series of Criticism in English Literature. In the previous lesson we discussed Philip Sidney and his most important work of criticism, that is Defense of Poesy. And now in this lesson we shall be discussing John Dryden, another critic. First, about criticism, pretty simple, that making corrections or giving suggestions. If someone is giving you suggestion that what to do, what not to do, how not to do. These are the things about poetry as well. So someone is, or writer, such critics are telling us or telling the others that how to write and what to write. So John Dryden. About him, it is said that he is the first official poet laureate, and his lifespan goes from 1631 to 1700. And about his works, we shall be discussing his most important work, that is Essays on Dramatic Poesy. Essays on Dramatic Poesy. But before that, we shall be discussing some of the important points about the criticism or the theories given by him. First, we start by Samuel Johnson. Samuel Johnson is another critic, and he says that John Dryden is the father of English criticism. John Dryden is the father of English criticism, said by Samuel Johnson for John Dryden. And now there are three categories we have, the criticism theories given by John Dryden. The first, he is considered as the pioneer of liberal criticism. Pioneer means he's a forerunner or leader, or you can say he's the main prominent person who is giving us the theory that liberal criticism has to be there. What is liberal criticism? He says that a writer should write according to his own desires and comforts and wishes, his own choice. One should follow his own choice. That's all. One is not supposed to follow the rules given by the others. Pretty simple. If you are a poet, you just follow your own instinct, your natural instincts, your own, means the content you prefer or the style you prefer. Second, he is also called as the pioneer of historic criticism. Historic means that he says that in the history, if we compare the ages from one century to another, or even in the age, if we have the ancient writers and the modern writers and the Elizabethan writers, different ages, the talent, the temperament, the style and everything differs from varies according to these generations. So we cannot we cannot really decide which one is better, but still we can make comparison by considering the situations during that period. So he wants to tell us that there has to be some difference. If Elizabethan age and restoration drama we have, and both these dramas, in Elizabethan we have William Shakespeare, and in restoration we have the writers like William Congreve, and then we see the difference between these ages. The style of the writer will be impacted by the social and political situations. And further he says that whatever the theories we read given by Aristotle, and every time we think that a play should be according to these three unities, unity of place, time and action, John Dryden says that it may not be possible, because whatever Aristotle felt in the period of ancient ages, means way back 2000 years or even more than this, at that time whatever he felt may not be applied these days. It is not possible. Whatever he felt during that time may not be applicable these days. So that is why he says that the ages, according to the ages or different ages, we have different characteristics, and such difference has to be there. It will happen automatically. And further there is one more, that is he is also considered as the pioneer of comparative criticism. It is almost the same point, that the comparison between two different ages he makes so many comparisons between ancients and the moderns, and he takes every aspect, means the social, political, every situation what is there, and how the writer wrote during that period, means even the ancients how they wrote and how the Elizabethan writers wrote. So these are the three main points about, as we are just beginning about John Dryden's theories, and then he comes to the main point: what is the aim of the poetry? This is the main point. Philip Sidney said that the aim of the poetry is to teach and delight. And what John Dryden says, he says that first and foremost aim of the poetry is to delight, to bring happiness, and instruction is secondary. Whatever the purpose of teaching behind a poem is secondary. He takes us one simple argument that if someone is reading a poem, why? To learn something or to get pleasure? If we are listening songs and music and poetry, why? We are just listening to them to get relief, to get delight. And okay, one factual point we are taking, that is maybe asked in UGC net questions, that John Milton has written Paradise Lost, and who said that Satan was the hero of Paradise Lost? It was John Dryden who said that Satan is the hero of Paradise Lost. A point to remember. Now about his minor works, we just quickly sum up these a few 3 or 4 works. In each of these works, or in most of other like his plays and tragedies, whatever he has written, in prefaces and epilogues, he has said so many things about his critical views about how to write poetry, how to write drama. So the first work we consider, that is Essay on Satire. Essay on Satires. And this is a translation, and this work is written by Juvenal. Juvenal is a Roman poet. He was his lifespan was in 1st or 2nd century, I think. Yeah, and he wrote satires. Juvenal wrote satires, and such satires were called as Juvenalian satires. And what John Dryden did, he simply translated these satires into English. Second, in the preface of this work, he shows, or he expressed his own views. Before translating, John Dryden gave his own opinions, his own criticism. And for satire, he says that it is simply the correction of manners. And one significant point he makes about in this work, that he give more importance to the satires written by Horace. So we have another critic, that is Horace. He was a Greek critic, and way back, even from the period of Juvenal. It was in, I think, 4th or 3rd BC. And he prefers Horace. So a point to be noted, according to John Dryden, he thinks that satires written by Horace are much better than satires written by Juvenal. The second work we are considering, that is Essays on Heroic Tragedy. Essays on Heroic Tragedy. In this work, he is discussing a tragedy, a tragic play. The name of the play is Conquest of Granada. Conquest of Granada, and it was a play written by John Dryden himself. It is a historic play. The Conquest of Granada means about this it is said that from 1482 to 1491, about 9 or 10 years, there were some Spanish military campaigns, and these campaigns were called as the Conquest of Granada. In the preface of this work, in the previous work I told you, in the essays on satire, he gives his own views. Similarly, in this work also, he is giving his own views first, and he is saying that epic is better than tragedy. Epic is better than tragedy. Okay, one comparison you can make, that in essays on satire he is talking about Horace and Juvenal, and now in essays on heroic tragedy he is talking about this fact, means his own criticism, that he thinks epic is better than tragedy. And what Aristotle said? Aristotle considered tragedy better than epic. So he is giving opinion in contrast to the opinion given by Aristotle. And for epic he says, John Dryden, for epic he says that the function of epic is to arouse admiration. If you are reading epic poem, so you are just admiring the heroic character, the central figure. So the main purpose or the main function of epic is to arouse admirations. As we can say one more word like appreciation. And then one more work we have, Essays on Fables. And in this work he is discussing the literature of Greece, Rome and Italy, so several European countries, and a big talk he is giving here about Chaucer. So all these works are centered on one or two figures. So this work, Essay on Fables, is centered on Sir Geoffrey Chaucer. Then we have Essays on Metaphysics, another work, fourth work, Essays on Metaphysics. And metaphysics, this term is coined by John Dryden. And if you know, you can, or sorry, if you don't know that for whom he has coined this term, I'll tell you that John Dryden coined this term for John Donne. John Donne, he's a famous poet, and he criticized further. He's praising John Donne, but he is also making some criticism. For what? Because the poetry, if you go through the poetry written by John Donne, you will find that it is so much extravagant and hyperbolic. You will find some conceits and examples which may not seem relative. That is why John Dryden has criticized John Donne. So remember one point, the term metaphysics is coined by John Dryden, and it was used for John Donne. Now, after these four works, I just quickly sum up. Essay on Satire is about Juvenal's satires. Essay on Heroic Tragedy is about Conquest of Granada. Essay on Fable is mostly based on Chaucer's. And Essay on Metaphysics, so simply remember, about John Donne. And now his most important work, that is Essays on Dramatic Poesy. Essays on Dramatic Poesy. This work is written, or we can call published, in 1668. And in the beginning, John Dryden says to the reader, so what he is telling to the reader, the aim is to vindicate the honor of our English writers from the censure of those who unjustly prefers the French before them. These are the lines you can read even on the screen. That he is simply admiring English writers, and he is saying that the people who are preferring French language, they are wrong. He prefers English language. He considers that English language is far better than other European language or even the French language. And about this work, it is in the form of dialogues, and there are several characters involved in it. So he has taken some of the characters even from his real life, means he has taken or based those characters on the real life persons. So first, in 1663, in the year 1663, there is a person, Samuel Sorbier. Samuel Sorbier, he visited England. A French person he is, and he visited England and published a work with unfavorable remarks against the English stage. So there was a French writer or person we can say, and he gave remarks against the English stage. He criticized the English stage plays. And then there comes another person, Thomas Pratt. Okay, may not be big name to remember. He's from the royal community, and he also gave a response to him, to that person, to that French writer. And then John Dryden wrote this work, Essay on Dramatic Poesy. So we can take that essay on dramatic poesy is written in response to a French writer or French person, that is Samuel Sorbier, and he remarked that English theatre, English plays are inferior. And now in this work, John Dryden is going to present his own opinion. So first, I told you that it is in the form of dialogue, so there will be some characters. What is the theme? The theme, several themes in this work, or several, we can say the theories or the several concepts, results given by John Dryden. So we just quickly note down these points. The first, he considered moderns are superior than the ancients. Modern writers are superiors than the ancients. Modern in a sense, not the moderns that we have in the 20th century or in the late 19th or even after the Victorian age, that we have the modern or postmodern, not such writers. Here modern means the newer ones according to his age. In the 17th century he was living. So the writer of his age, of the 17th century. So he's thinking that these writers are far better than the ancient ones. Second, Restoration writers. So the same writers, he was almost in the same age, and he says the Restoration writers are better than the Elizabethans. So simply he's saying that whatever is in the past and whatever we are getting in the present, and by the future we are going further, the things are improving, getting better and better. Next point he makes, that English drama is better than French. And then one last point he says, rhyme is better than the blank verse, because rhyme have in the poetry, if you have rhyme, rhythm, music, then it will definitely bring more delight. So that is why he prefers rhyme, not blank verse. Now in this work, the essay on dramatic poesy, there are several characters. So the first character we have Crite, C-R-I-T-E, Crite. And Crite is the symbolic representation of John Dryden's brother-in-law. And the name of his brother-in-law was Sir Robert Howard. Sir Robert Howard. So I told you that there will be discussions, and through discussion he is bringing some results. The results, I have told you that the 4 results about modern are superior, restorations are superior, English drama is superior. This will be presented through the discussion. So Crite is a symbolic representation of his brother-in-law, and he is the supporter of ancient. So you just remember this name, because now we repeat such names and their views and comments. The another person or character we have, that is Eugenius. Eugenius. Okay, there may be different pronunciation for this name, and he is Dryden's friend, and the name of that friend is Charles Sackville. Charles Sackville, and he is known as the Lord Buckburst. Lord Buckburst. So Crite was the supporter of ancients, and now we have Eugenius is the supporter of the moderns. Then we are introduced to the third character, and that is Lycidius. Lycidius. And this character is based on Charles Sedley. And he is a French theatre supporter. So he supports French theatre. And last character we have Neander. This is the most important character, Neander, because remember, Neander is fact or principally we can say based on John Dryden himself. John Dryden himself. And he supports, you can easily predict, Neander supports English theatre. And now, what are the views given by Crichton? Crichton believes that ancients are better than the modern ones, because he feels that the moderns are imitating the ancient ones. The modern writers, they are just imitating the ancient ones like the Aristotle or the Horace or the other writers we have in the past, Homer. So he feels that if you are copying someone, definitely the main whom you are copying, that will be better. So this is his opinion. And further he says that the ancients are mostly as a content, they have the nature, the main part of their content. Then he also says that ancients are better because they followed the principle given by Aristotle, that is the unity of three things: action, time and place. But the moderns, he criticized that the modern writer do not follow any such unity. So these are the views given by Crichton. So I told you that Crichton is in the favor of ancient writers. Then there are the views given by Eugenius. And Eugenius, he is the supporter of the moderns. So he says that moderns are way better. Why? Because they are excelling, they are making better. They are taking the things from the past, whatever the content, that means the content in the plays or in the poems, they are bringing, they are making so much good to them, means that they are making them better. If they are producing, they are rewriting them, they are creating much better copies. This is what he is trying to say. And then he also says that the ancients, what they were doing, they were mostly writing on the myths, and mostly they were taking the content of one another. And okay, there may be transparency, but they were lacking in originality, the ancient ones, and they were writing on myths. This is the demerit he considers. The common theme they were taking, they were disregarding the poetic justice. This is the important point. What is the poetic justice? Poetic justice means if you have a movie and in the movie you find that in the end everything is well settled, the evil is or the bad people are punished, the good people are rewarded. This is called as the poetic justice. So he says, Eugenius says, that the good people are not blessed and the bad people are not punished in the ancient tragedies what we read. So that is why he is giving no respect to the ancient writers and saying that they were not so good. And there were not too many separate acts. He says that everything was summed up in one or two acts, or just in a single act most of the time. So these were the opinions given by Eugenius. So we have the contrasting opinions of Crichton and Eugenius. Now we move to the third character's opinion. What he says, Lycidius. Lycidius, he is the supporter of French theatre. So we shall be now discussing what about French theatre. The French theatre or the French writers, they follow the unity. The unity is given by Aristotle, and there are no tragic comedy. This is their advantage or their qualities. What Lycidius feel, that the French writers, they do not mix up comedy with tragedy, but the English writers do. This is a negative thing according to Lycidius. And history and tragedy most of the time mixed. History and tragedy is mixed, and okay, somewhat in the fictions. And he says that in the French theatre, French theatre, the poetic justice is given. Poetic justice, I told you. And about the French writers, he further says that they prefer emotions over the plot, and they avoid some violence. If there is any bloodshed or violence in the play, such scenes are not performed on the stage, they are simply reported. So this is a good thing according to Lycidius, means such violence or negative things should not be performed on the stage, and this thing is done by the French theatre or French writers, playwrights. And he thinks that rhyming verse is better than the blank verse. The blank verse is considered as the English, and rhyming verse is considered as the part of French literature. So in the favor of French literature, he is saying that they follow the unities, they are not mixing up tragedies and comedies. Okay, history and tragedies mix, but they are giving or providing poetic justice, and emotions they prefer, and they prefer rhyming verse. So now we come to the views given by Neander, and these are the views principally, we can say, of John Dryden. He supports English dramatists, and he says that they do not follow classical ones, means the ancient ones, they do not follow. French, about French, he is now making a criticism that the French, they do not imitate life, means life is the mix up of comedy and tragedy, everything is there. So their play may be perfect, the French plays may be perfect, but they do not relate to the real life. And secondly, they lack emotion and passion in the plays. And further, he says that English theatre or English plays, they arouse pity and fear, emotions they arouse. English comedies, tragedies are far superior than the comedies of French theatre. So he is simply favoring the English theatre. And then he says that the French dialogues, means in the French theatre we see the dialogues, they are pretty long and cold. Cold means they are not so much appealing to the audience, they are not so effective, they are talking in verses and they are using longer dialogues, and this is a negative thing according to John Dryden. And then Neander, means John Dryden, we can say, he talks about the merits of English theatre. In English theatre, he says that even without the unities, means the three unities they do not follow, but he feels that still the plays are so good. Even the subplots, if it is given in a play, it is provided a proper depth, and it is placed well ordered. And subplots, why I am using this word subplots, because in the unity of action we feel we see that with the unity of action there has to be only one plot. But in English theatre, in English plays, there are subplots, means not the main action, there is also a subordinate action going in the play, a separate story we can say, maybe somewhat relative. So John Dryden says that such subplots are properly placed and providing proper depth. Then he says that such things are adding more variety and bringing more reality to the play. So this is the main quality of English plays. And tragic comedy is far better than simple tragedy or simple comedy. He says that the mix-up of these two is good. It is giving a balance. It is also seen in the life. Life is the combination of tragedy and comedy. In everything is happening. Good is happening, bad is happening. It is not purely good we are having. So we have such mix up of experiences. So he is saying that This is the part of life, so play should relate to the real life. And he now take one example, that Molière. Molière is a French writer, and he used tragic comedy. Molière, he used tragic comedy. So with Molière, he is praising, means he is okay, taking Molière as exception among the French writers. And you can take this name as which French writer he used, the name of which writer he used in this work, that is Molière. And then Neander says that England and France both are different countries. The temperament of the people, whether their likes for violence and peace, and large list of characters in the plays, everything differs. So the characteristics of French plays and characteristics of English plays are entirely different. That's how he ends this. Then there is the discussion about rhyme. And now who the people are discussing about rhyme? We have Dryden and Neander. Dryden is the person who is in favor of ancient ones, and he is now discussing the things with Neander. Dryden says that rhyme is unnatural and it cannot be offhand. Offhand means without any preparations. It is not natural, he says, and play is about everyday life. So the plays we see in the theater, these are about everyday life, to the whatever we do in the life, happiness, tragedy, everything is there. So it is relating to everyday life. Another point he makes, that the blank verse is good for prose. Blank verse means without rhyme, it is very good, or it is so close to the prose. And then he says that great dramatists do not use, the greatest of dramatists we have, they haven't used this, but still he says that if someone is using blank verse in the prose, it's still acceptable. So these are the 4 or 3 points given by Dryden about rhyme is not natural, and blank verse is still good for prose, and okay, greatest of dramatists hadn't used this. Then Neander says, he says that the use of natural word in natural way, that is rhyme. Natural word in natural ways, and rhymed verse is good. Rhymed verse is good. And Neander further one more point he is making, that civilized people use rhyme. Civilized people use rhyme. So these are the 2 or 3 points made by Neander. Now there is criticism of Chaucer. In this essay we have what is the criticism of Chaucer. For Chaucer, it is said by John Dryden that when English poetry was in its infancy, means it was in childhood, or even before that childhood, that time Chaucer was writing. So we cannot expect, it was just the starting at that time, the English poetry, because we see the modern English starts from Chaucer. So almost by the 15th century we can say. So Chaucer is just at the beginning time, so we cannot expect perfection from Sir Geoffrey Chaucer, and he criticized Sir Geoffrey Chaucer for using a large variety of characters in Canterbury Tales. And then he take one sentence, that there is a sentence used by him, here is God's plenty, means the number of characters, and characters representing large section of society, different sections of society. So he says that he has used a number of characters which is not good. Then for Chaucer, this is important point, it is also asked in UGC net question. John Dryden has said that Chaucer is a rough diamond. that should be refined and polished. So now with this line you can take the opinion that he's considering that okay, Chaucer was good, but he was just in the beginning, he was in rough position, so he should be refined and polished, only then he will shine. And then he makes comparison of Shakespeare and Ben Jonson. Ben Jonson and Shakespeare both are Elizabethan age dramatists. They are playwrights and both have written a number of plays. And he's making a comparison between Shakespeare and Ben Jonson. For Shakespeare, he says that the plays written by Shakespeare are the comprehensive, and he is compared with Homer, and he loves him. John Dryden loves Shakespeare and he compares him with Homer. And now for Ben Jonson, he compares him with Virgil. Who is Virgil? Homer is a Greek poet. In the beginning we see in the 800 BC, and Virgil is a Roman poet. In the 1st century we see him, Virgil, Roman poet. And for Jonson, he's comparing or taking Jonson for Virgil, and then he's admiring him. For Shakespeare, he is expressing love, and for Jonson, he is expressing admirations. So now you can choose that, or you can decide which one is better to him, whether it is Jonson or Shakespeare. Plays of Shakespeare and Boymond Fletcher, there are another writer, Boymond Fletcher, they are greater, despite they have no unity, because we know that most of the Shakespeare plays are not following the unities given by the rule of unity given by Aristotle. And for Jonson, about Jonson, he says that there is one play, Silent Women, in the Elizabethan age, when in British literature we shall be discussing Ben Jonson pretty soon. And there is one play written by him, that is Silent Women. And for this play, John Dryden says that this play is following all the unities, all the 3 unities given by Aristotle. So that's all we have about the criticism theories given by John Dryden. So you just, if you can just try to remember the main points. Main points will be sufficient, I think. And whichever the important writer I thought or I found that in the criticism, the name he has used, like for about Shakespeare he has said so many things, about Jonson he has said so many things, and the play of Jonson, Silent Woman, is mentioned by John Dryden. So I have just taken the important names in this, and I think this will be sufficient. So just remember those 4 characters. We have Crite, we have Eugenius, then we have one more Neander, and there is one more character, that is Lycidius. So the 4 characters are the part of dramatic poesy. And then we have several UGC NET previous year questions, so we shall be discussing these questions now. Even I think that if I simply put to you this question or these questions, you will be able to answer. The first is metaphysical poet. This term first used by whom? Who used this term? John Dryden. And for whom he used? He used this term for John Donne. Okay, and there is one more point, metaphysical school of poetry. Metaphysical school of poetry is used by Samuel Johnson. So just there is a difference. Metaphysical poet, this term is used by John Dryden, and metaphysical school of poetry, this term is used by Samuel Johnson. The next question we have, Crite, the character in the work Essays on Dramatic Poesy, the character Crite, he favors the the first character I introduced you, Crite, he is favoring ancient. That is why I introduced him first, because first come the ancients. So Crite favors the ancients. Then we have Dryden. He called Dryden. What sentence or what terms he used for Chaucer in essays of dramatic poesy? Dryden used that Chaucer is a rough diamond, and he should be polished and refined to shine. So he not criticized, but still he is making some comment on Chaucer, Sir Geoffrey Chaucer, in this essay. Another question we have, John Dryden says that Ben Jonson is most learned writer, and he is a judicious writer. For Ben Jonson, Dryden, what he's saying? He's saying that Ben Jonson is most learned and judicious writer. Another question, dramatic poesy. In this, which two theatre he is comparing? He is comparing two theatres, English and French theatre. Another question we have, Neander. Neander, he is making a defense for which thing in English theatre? Neander himself, John Dryden's views, so he is defending or giving defense for tragic comedy in English theatre. So he is praising, he is saying that tragic comedy, mix up of tragedy and comedy, is fine. Another question, there is a quotation, I think, yeah. He need not the spectacles of books to read the nature. He need not the spectacles of books to read the nature. This sentence is used by John Dryden for William Shakespeare. So you just have to remember that he need not the spectacles of books to read the nature. There are 4 characters in dramatic poesy. So the question is, which are those characters? So we know Crite, Eugenius, Lycidius, and Neander. And the last question we have, that is essay of dramatic poesy is written in which form? It is written in the form of dialogues. So that's it about John Dryden. It was a huge lesson, 40 minutes we have already crossed. Okay, the main important work is essay on dramatic poesy. You may try to just note down the important points and these 4 characters, and go through this lesson once or twice. You will automatically remember the important points. So I hope I have tried my best to justify whatever I have learnt about John Dryden as a critic. In the next lesson, we shall be discussing Alexander Pope, another famous writer, but we shall be discussing Alexander Pope as a critique in the next lesson. Thanks for watching this lesson. Have a nice day.